Residents are making their way around town by rowboat, powerboat, or canoe. One resident even pulled his boat right up to his garage. Well, people living in the community of Vernonia have been cut off from the rest of the world since that water started to rise. Their roads have been washed out and blocked by mudslides. Our reporter, Mark Hass, took Chopper 2 to Vernonia today, the only way in.
Vernonia woke up Thursday morning to a nightmare. Nehalem River and Rock Creek flooded out the northeast Oregon timber town. Rowboats the only way to get around. And adding to the frustration, access roads were washed out, cutting off the flow of supplies, food, utility workers, and a way out of town. For people like Margaret Hunt, the nightmare continues.
Anxious to look inside?
We're curious, very curious, but I think the water came up pretty high, so there probably isn't much left that's usable anymore.
High water ripped the deck off of Bud Gibson's house and left it in a neighbor's yard.
This is my deck that was freestanding in front of the front of the house there. Yes, it just, the water picked it up and moved it right away from the house.
The worst thing was that it happened so fast here in Vernonia. In just a matter of hours, the Nehalem River flooded the entire city. No one had time to prepare. That means more damage, more cleanup. What was under 4 feet of water yesterday is now under a layer of mud.
Yeah, I moved everything upstairs.
Grocery stores stack their spoiled food out on the sidewalk. With roads cut off, they are quickly running out of supplies.
The highway is literally gone after a sinkhole developed. Just take a look at the pictures. Obviously, the highway is closed to traffic, but that's just one of many problems in the area, which our Michael Hanna visited earlier today.
A wet drive home through knee-deep water for Tim and Candy Spencer.
We're kind of happy with what we're seeing, but, you know, on the other hand, we know that the underside of our trailer is wiped out.
The Spencers return home to their flooded mobile home park for the first time since the Clatskanie River ran through it. Inside, Candy Spencer checks on the 2 cats she had to leave behind.
Oh, come here, baby. Oh, there she goes. Oh, baby. Oh, no.
The cats are okay, but their home is a muddy mess.
A lot of cleanup. A lot.
Workers at this restaurant struggle to put the place back in business.
Yesterday, the town was in like 3 feet of water. Traffic couldn't go through here. It was a mess.
A mess which touches almost every low-lying business in town. The Clatskanie Motel is filled with water. And look what happened to this lumber yard when a Columbia River dike broke. Valuable timber products are floating everywhere. And floodwater fills Clatskanie's main street.
I lived here all my life, and it's never been like this.
Mylene White helps run this damaged beauty salon. She just spent thousands of dollars remodeling.
Well, a lot of money because we just replaced everything. We just put new stations in and did a lot of work inside, and now it's all gone.
The town has been virtually cut off from outside communication for the past 24 hours. You can't make a long-distance phone call from here, and it's very, very difficult to get here because most of the main roads coming into town are closed by rock slides. Highway 30 especially, very, very treacherous and impossible to pass to get into Clatskanie. So that's the situation here. People already starting to clean up, assess the damage here in Clatskanie.
And near Clatskanie, a dramatic rescue attempt was caught on videotape. A giant landslide carrying huge logs crashed into the small community, destroying 2 houses, damaging several others. Now, rescuers braved the threat of another slide to pull an older woman out of her home. You can see her in the blue coat there. And minutes after they pulled that woman to safety, more debris comes crashing into the area.
Just incredible pictures tonight. The big task of landslide has closed the interstate at milepost 23 at Woodland. It will be closed at least for another 24 hours. And drivers are being turned around at milepost 16, and there is no detour around the problem. There are also problems with the southbound lanes, but police hope to have at least one of them open by midnight or early this morning. Elizabeth Bermuda spent today in that area of southwest Washington and looks at some of the damage from the flooding.
It doesn't look like any planes will be landing at the Woodland Air Park Airport anytime soon. High waters from the Lewis River have covered the entire airstrip, including what used to be 2 airplane hangars. Right across from the airport is a flooded-out mobile home community, about a quarter of them owned by elderly people.
You know, I thought it might come up in the street or something, but I didn't believe this.
because, of course, you know, with the river, who knows?
And one of the toughest things for the residents living at this mobile home park is that they only got a half-hour warning to get out of their homes. For many of them, that meant just getting out with the clothes on their back.
They only gave us 30 minutes. That isn't time to get very much.
There are a lot of people that just got up and walked out, and they had a truck with a loudspeaker. Get out, get out, get out. We thought a crest was coming.
But beyond all the frustration, there was some joy and relief. Dixie Dormius's cat, Misty, showed up after being missing for a day and a half. Further north in the small town of Kalama, floodwaters filled the downtown business district, damaging about 20 businesses and washing away several cars. Even so, folks here say they can handle it.
Just this year alone, I mean, it's been, you know, you've had the high winds, you've had the rains, you've had the snow, you've had the freezing. Albright tow truck too, and it's, you know, it's just nonstop.
Okay, Elizabeth Bermudez in Southwest Washington. Some of those
authorities, and here's what we found. Officials received a report of water on Marine Drive at 33rd tonight, but investigators found no sign of any water or damage to the dike there. However, Marine Drive does remain closed to allow officials easy access to that dike.
Well, they are working around the clock tonight to clean up a major mudslide blocking Interstate 84, 7 miles west of Cascade Locks. The slide is covering both the east and westbound lanes of the interstate. It remains closed at this hour. The slide has also interrupted train service, knocking out freight cars, and the slide has also destroyed a home. There are actually 2 slides in the area, and crews hope to have the area clear within the next few days. Absolutely incredible.
To date, 1.32. I'd say we're a bit above normal.
They're reporting 11.3 inches there. Look at Tillamook. 13 plus inches of rain there. So the real heavy area right in here, and then had a report this may be even higher of Cougar, Washington. Of course, they get the mountains up there, 16.2. So we really saw the focus of the heavy rain in the Tillamook area and then right in the North Coast Range here. And that's, of course, exactly where we're seeing all the big problems, too. These are from the SNOTEL sites. The snow survey folks passed these on to me, and these are totally amazing numbers. Almost 2 feet of rain at Laurel Mountain. Saddle Mountain, that's up in the Coast Range, 20 inches of rain and 14 inches of snow water, so 34 inches total. Bull Run, also way up there, and this one is also real interesting too. Look at this. Marion Forks had more water come out of the snow than they did out of the sky. You total it up though, and it's just incredible. But the granddaddy report was June Lake. That's up on the south side of Mount St. Helens. 31 inches of rain from this storm, another 8.5 inches of snow melt. That gives you a total of almost 40 inches of rain. That's more than Portland gets in an average year. That's more than a lot of cities get in an average year. So it has indeed been one for the record books. Just totally amazing.
The reason there are so many rivers that drain into the low-lying areas, at least 5 major ones. Grant McComie has spent the past 3 days in Tillamook County. He says today's sunshine brought the promise of better times, but the realization that there is a lot of work ahead.
From up here, Tillamook County is a chocolate brown lake stretching from the Coast Range to the Blue Pacific. The water simply runs everywhere, isolating neighborhoods and especially small farms. The dairy industry, lifeblood to this tight-knit community, will take weeks to recover. Some farms lost everything.
I have to get the garage cleaned up and move the furniture out and then start hosing it. We'll get the hoses out. It's never done this, not this bad before.
Others discovered small miracles in the now receding disaster. Here, a calf holds a promise for a farmer's future. Still, getting around is nearly impossible.
For the last couple of days, the only way to get around Tillamook County's been by boat. Well, things are improving. Now a 4-wheel drive rig, high off of the water, may just do the job.
Today, neighbors helped each other with tractors, bringing out a farmer's livestock that were trapped all night.
He figures he has about half his herd left in there.
And the other half he was able to get out earlier, or he just lost? They're gone.
We're standing in the middle of the road here, or what used to be the road. It looks like about 2 feet deep, and the water came up so fast you can't get vehicles in to pull them out. And so then they're stuck, and they just said that they just had to leave them yesterday.
Still, they seem up to the task. Though this flood will be historic, generosity born of adversity is not.
Yeah, that's the thing with Tillamook is it's family, and when somebody's in trouble, and which you've seen all over this valley. It's been one dairy going to the next dairy, to the next dairy, to the next dairy. Everybody's trying to save everybody's hide.
And in days to come, that adage will surely be tested. In Tillamook, Grant McComey, Channel 2 News.
Another note, yesterday we reported that the local radio station KTIL in Tillamook was forced off the air when the station was flooded. They hope to be back on the air tomorrow. They're a lifeline to the folks down there. In the meantime, KYTE FM radio in Newport is broadcasting county-wide emergency bulletins and announcements for all you folks down there in Tillamook.
When we come back tonight,
trouble spot all day long, the Tualatin River. In many places, it continues to rise tonight. Jeff Gianola along with Steve Dunn, glad you're with us.
It's been a tough day for those folks in Tualatin. It will be many tough days ahead. Our Bob High's been following that story. He is in Tualatin. What's the latest there, Bob?
Steve, it's amazing. The water appears to be still rising here in downtown Tualatin. The road here closed off that leads into the downtown area. People standing around watching what's happening here this evening. Sandbags piled up, but the water still rushing through here. Walk around with me, if you will, and I'll show you. This is the depth of the water just in this parking lot, and it gets to be 6.5 feet as you walk around the downtown area. As you look downtown past the movie theaters and on toward the downtown area, you can see the water rushing behind me. It is an amazing sight. Rushing up against the base of those saplings, it's just running over, just creating rooster tails. It's going so fast. It has also been a problem for the neighborhoods around the Tualatin area, and we visited one of those neighborhoods earlier this evening. People getting around by boat, because that's pretty much the only way you could get around, was by boat. In some of the neighborhoods that were hit, we understand that about 200 people are now out of their homes because of the flood waters, seeking shelter in a local Red Cross shelter or staying with family or friends this evening. And they are also saying that it will be some time before these flood waters recede, probably through the weekend, if not longer. There's 6.5 feet of water in some places here downtown. In addition, the city authorities are asking that people here in Tualatin conserve water as well, not because the water is necessarily contaminated or there's a possibility that it might be, but because Tualatin gets its water, as Portland does, from the Bull Run watershed. Portland city officials asking people there to conserve because they don't want to draw too much water from the Bull Run watershed, raising turbidity levels and then requiring people to boil their water. If everybody uses less, they won't have to do that. That's the message, not only for Portland, but for people out here in the suburbs, Beaverton, Tualatin, that also get their water from the Bull Run watershed. So a lot of people have to still be concerned about floodwaters, not only because they're doing so much damage, but because you have to conserve water as well.
Okay, Bob, thanks for your fine efforts all throughout the day and night, and we're really with those folks out there.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Bob. As we've been reporting, that continues to be a trouble.
It's in downtown Lake Oswego in front of businesses and homes. Some homes and businesses are already flooded, and residents face big problems tonight. Oswego Lake is overflowing its banks into the city. The canal is also overflowing, and the Tualatin River will not crest until noon tomorrow.
Well, tonight we have a perfect and sad example of just how much work many homeowners face. Here's a look at the disaster one Oak Grove family discovered today when they returned to their flooded home.
Flood. My house, there's still mud in my house from the '64 flood, so this house has now lived through 2 major floods. If this one's salvageable, I don't know. Oh, it was getting to be a real nice home. We've been working on it for about 4 years, or 4 or 5 years now, and had all brand new floors throughout and drywall.
We were here at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was like to our ankles. And this is the first time we've been in the house since 1 o'clock this morning. Look at Jesse. Oh my God. This is not what I expected. Not at all. I gotta get out of this water. Oh my God.
A lot of us don't know what we're doing. I'm looking at my house going, I don't have any idea where I'm going, what I'm doing next.
Okay, that's a fine example of when this thing starts to calm down. We're all going to have to pitch together and help our fellow people who are in trouble, neighbor helping neighbor, and we'll be giving you a lot of information like that starting this weekend on how you can help these folks who were flooded out.
You know, I think that's when it really hits home for people, when you see folks walking through their homes and the water's coming up their legs.
Absolutely.
Like that. You know, you can look at the rivers all you want, but you see it in your house, it's a different story. We're going to show you something again that we showed you earlier in this newscast. This is just absolutely amazing. If you want to to tape this, so get your VCR rolling, because this is the stuff we showed you. This is a landslide in the West Hills. Bob Holman and his son Starson working on a construction job. When this thing started to go, just watch and listen again.
Yes! Go! Yeah! You got good, come on! Yes! Go, you got that quick break, Lucy. Get in the back of my truck, get in the back of my truck! Oh, no, no, no! Go! Go, faster! Faster! Go, 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 go! Keep going, keep going! Go, 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 this car! Oh, this is awesome! Okay, stop. Wow! Oh my God!
Isn't that something?
Absolutely incredible.
It doesn't matter how many times you see it.
Absolutely incredible. We should mention something. That silver truck that was caught in front of that mudslide, you heard the screeching of the tires. Its brakes were on. It was in park, and yet it was just moving down the hill screeching. The man who owned that called us. His name, Ernie Cook. He's a construction worker from Gresham. He was working on a job up there. Guess what? He says after that slide, he hosed the old rig off and drove away. So it's okay. So nothing can stop those rigs there. Absolutely amazing that no one was hurt. As I mentioned, it reminds you of Indiana Jones when that big rock is rolling and he's trying to run away from it. They said it went a quarter of a mile down that hill, and they're racing in front of it, in front of a pickup truck while someone's taking pictures.
And you can hear the squealing from that truck, too. Ernie, we appreciate you calling us. We're glad your truck's okay.
And you're okay, yeah.
Glad you're okay. We appreciate the folks who brought that videotape into us, and I'm sure you'll see it again over the next a few days here on Channel 2. We'll be showing you. And let's bring Ron Carlson into the mix. Ron, what did you think of that?
One of the hardest hit areas there in that area up along Interstate 5. Not only did they have several feet of water in much of the town, also dealing with a big traffic nightmare. Tremendous problems along Interstate 5. In fact, just north of Woodland tonight, closed in both directions because of a mudslide.
Our own Steve Bartelstein spent much of the day with the folks up in the Woodland area as they struggled to save their homes and to help each other out. And he joins us now in the newsroom. I understand you were pretty impressed, Bart.
You know, I think sometimes it's the tragedies, Tracy, and the setbacks in life that brings out the best in all of us. You know, we were eating dinner tonight just after our complete day in Woodland, and we talked to some of the folks there, and they said, you know something, so often all of us in all of life talk about the negatives, when in fact the good people far outnumber the bad. So tonight, we focus on a lot of those good people in Woodland. The sound of helicopters briefly drown out the conversations below. But these voices are much stronger, unified voices, in different languages, but all with the same goal.
You don't say, well, my house is okay, I'm not going to do anything. You know, you're going to go out and do what you have to do. Help everybody.
We always talk about the negative, but it's things like this that probably bring out the positive in most folks.
Boy, is that true. This is a great mix of people, and we're all working for one cause.
And for every adult, there's the younger version. Mom and Dad get you to come out here? Are you doing a good job? Good, that a boy. And though the work is tiring, it's not without reward. Smiles for a job well done, and for the good in most of us.
We're all here, and they're staying until we're done. We're going to win.
I fish this river constantly, and it's never been like this.
That's what their party room looks like. To the left of that, a 3-car garage completely submerged, along with their VW bus. But all was not lost this day. This lucky dog will someday reminisce about the flood of '96. And so will a hamster named Twinkie.
Twinkie, my hamster. The flood survivor.
A lot of survivors there.
Into that same hole, managed to crawl out alive. Flooding is so bad in Washington, Governor Lowry says his state is simply run out of sandbags. Some good news to report from the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. The good folks over there on the other side of the river say tonight that they are declaring victory after 2 days of fighting valiantly against the floodwaters in the basement. We got some pictures to show you. The work crews over there had been working around the clock. There you see the water literally pouring from the Willamette into the basement at OMSI. They've had the pumps going. There was some concern earlier tonight that there might be an electrical problem and they would have to shut down the pipes. No matter what, they knew the exhibits were safe.
I don't think it'll ever get to the exhibit floor.
ABC's Brian Rooney and the way the rest of the country saw our flooding here in Oregon.
After 5 days of rain in Portland, it was not enough to wake up to sunshine. The riverfront parks were covered with water and waves lapped at the doors of shops. The Willamette River that runs through town swept along evidence of destruction. A dock arranged with deck chairs, a boat spinning in the currents. By mid-afternoon, the river was running more than 10 feet above flood level. This is Willamette Falls, normally a 30-foot drop, now almost swallowed by high water. Near Portland, a team of tugboats labored to keep a pier full of houseboats from breaking away. Upstream from Portland, most of this riverfront neighborhood of Oak Grove is now in the river.
That's where it broke over. The bank is right over there off of that house there.
Some people who evacuated yesterday were hip deep in their homes today. Just about 100 yards out there, the river is moving at about 20 miles an hour. It's carrying whole trees along with it. It's still rising, but there are a few people in this neighborhood who have a fighting chance to keep it out of their living room. Down there is Jerry Markle's house, ringed with sandbags. The water is about 10 inches from his living room floor.
The neighbors always say you need to get worried once it gets up around the cottonwood tree. Sure enough, it was, so.
But throughout northwest Oregon and in parts of nearby Washington and Idaho, people who love the normally peaceful rivers are being reminded of their power. These are the rooftops of Woodland, Washington on the Columbia River, and the river hasn't crested yet. Brian Rooney, ABC News, Portland, Oregon.
Okay, since Brian's report, the Columbia has crested. It's at its crest level, and that's how the rest of the country saw our flooding here in Oregon go. This is a mudslide up off of West Burnside.
I knew I should have gotten out of here. Someone was telling me. Oh, God.
Okay.
I'm out of business.
Okay, that is one angle of the mudslide, and Steve's going to pick up the story from here.
Okay, what happens next is a man was doing a construction job up in that same area at the same time. He was with his son when all of a sudden the hillside gave loose. And we're going to just shut up here for a second and let you listen to this as they jump in the back of the pickup truck with the camera rolling and shoot as they're going downhill. Listen to this.
Yes! God, you got that quick break loose. Get in the back of my truck. Get in the back of my truck. Oh, no, no, no! No! No, faster! 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 Go, 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 go! Keep going, keep going! Go, 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 this car! Oh, this is awesome! Okay, it stopped.
Wow. Oh, boy. No matter how many times you see that.
Oh, no. It is absolutely incredible.
Amazing.
Pickup truck. They want to get out of there. That slid almost a quarter mile down a Monte Vista Terrace up there in northwest Portland. And we'll take a look at that again. Did you see towards the end there, the house that's damaged, the garage? That area, there are some homes up there that are condemned. They don't want people up there. It's roped off. Some of those homes are condemned because the slide's continuing to slide at this hour.
They're basically asking people to stay out of there. No sightseers whatsoever up there. We can also tell you, the truck that you saw kind of leading the way and you heard the tires squealing on it. That gentleman called us last night after we first ran this on our 11 o'clock news last night. We'll show you that truck again. You can see it. It'll be the first one being pushed. The gentleman who owns that truck called us up and said that after this all ended, he kind of dusted off the truck, cleaned it up, and drove her away.
Yeah, just washed off the rig and drove it away.
Get in the back of my truck. Get in the back of my truck.
It just really shows you how powerful that is as it comes down, as it pushes that car, runs into the other cars, and then hits that home there at the tail end. You hear that squealing.
There's the first car.
Go, 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 go!
There goes the second car.
Keep going, keep going!
There's the third and fourth cars. There goes the house.
Okay, it stopped. Wow! Oh my God!
Donna Fitzpatrick, the owner of the house at the end there that gets hit, called and said, quite a mess up there, absolutely incredible. But you see the fury of Mother Nature when it can push a truck like that, a pickup truck, parked, and that's the squeal you hear are the tires of a parked pickup truck down a hill like that. That is something absolutely
Apparently
incredible.
the damage to the house is just at the very end also, we learned. That is just amazing to see, though, every single time. Hey, let's check in on the traffic now, Jeff, and go to Norm Gunning, our assignment editor in the newsroom. How's it looking, Norm?
Well, best make it in. Obviously, regular passenger automobiles can't. The other alternative, of course, a canoe, some of the small boats we've been seeing. Let's see if we can talk to this gentleman up here about what this is all about. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
What's your name?
Rhodey Tamblin.
And are you with the Army, or what's the deal here?
I own this. I collect military vehicles, and this is a 1944 GMC Duck, it's called, and it goes in the land and water, as you can see. We're here to pick up some friends, and anybody else who wants to give gas donations is welcome to go with us.
You giving tours, or you helping people out in there? What's going on?
There's nobody really left in there, and the only ticket is to go real slow so you don't break windows. That's what they're concerned with, and I'm perfectly willing to do that. And so we'd like to go over the county barns and see the disaster over there and the restaurant and everything else.
Hey, can you do us a favor here? I'm going to ask Pat Regan. Do we have about 2 minutes here, Pat, our producer? Let's. I'm going to climb up on here and ask you to go backwards for a second so we can give people a look at how this works. Is that okay? I'm going to stand on here. This thing is really impressive. It's just huge. There's a boat coming up from behind us, so we're going to be a little careful here. But I'm going to ask our driver here to just back up so you can see how this thing operates here in the water. Once again, we're here at the corner of 14th and Washington in Oregon City. Take a look at what's going on here. There's still a lot of high water, but before we get going here, if our photographer Tom Augusti pans onto the sides of some of the buildings, you can see where the water was just a few hours ago last night. I'm not sure if you can make it out, but there's a high water mark there along the sides of some of the buildings.
Would you like just to back out and turn around?
Yeah, let's just back out and turn around on this thing real fast if we can. But all these businesses here on this stretch of this part of downtown Oregon City are inundated. Nobody is really inside them. We've seen a few business owners coming into the area to kind of check things out. There are also a lot of people here just gathered to look at the situation, looking at this vehicle, and looking at some of the damage. It's a weekend, obviously, so time the people are off work. They've come in to kind of survey the situation. Well, this gives you another perspective. Maybe a little bit later we'll be able to put our camera on here and give you a little bit more of a perspective of what's going on here in this section of downtown Oregon City. I think if you want, we can kind of drive around a little bit out here, and if we run out of time, we can toss it back to the studio. But this amphibious vehicle is doing the trick in about, I'd say, 5, maybe 6 feet of water. How deep are we here?
I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 feet. We're definitely floating, and it drafts about 4 feet of water.
So the vehicle floats, and then at certain points the tires kind of latch on?
That's right. The tires aren't turning now, just the prop. That's why we're backing up. And I disengage the tires as soon as we're floating. So when we come up, I'll engage the tires and they'll pull us out.
Let's back up a little bit if you can, and then we'll wheel it back in to give everybody an idea of how this thing... While I'm out here, why don't we pan up that way and kind of take a look at some of the people up there. There's people on the bridge there who've come to take a look around here. And if you look behind us, there's just a huge crowd of people gathered here on Washington Street. People who've got the day off, they've come down here to just take a look around, the curious. Many of them people with their home camcorders, still cameras, people curious. Now, I got to tell you, police here in the area are trying to keep people away from this area because they want to keep a lot of the roads open. Traffic is getting to be a problem in this part of Oregon City because a lot of people coming down here to take a look. We're still advising people to stay at home and keep watching this stuff on TV because police want to keep these roads open. There's not a lot anybody can do about the situation, but it's quite a sight out here for the curious. And if you look over that way, you get another idea of how people are getting around here. It's not just amphibious vehicles. A lot of boats out here. A lot of people have driven up with boats who don't live in the area and are taking the boats out to have a look around. Others are helping out friends and business owners here, giving them rides on their boats to go take a look at the situation in there.
Hey, Michael?
Yes, go ahead.
This is Steve. Listen, yesterday when Ken Cole was out there in Oregon City, he was talking to several of the residents. They seemed relatively calm about all of this, amazingly. How are they doing today?
Well, you know what? I'm going to put their microphone down here for just a second and get out, and there's somebody over here that we're going to talk to. Hey, thanks a lot for the ride. We appreciate that. That was interesting. So bear with me.
Okay, and as Michael goes down, Jeff, it looks as though a positive note in all of this, I guess, is the water seems to be receding a bit.
We talked with the fire officials there. They said at least in some areas 2 feet there in Oregon City.
Okay,
what was your name again?
I'm Nancy Spicer from Spicer Brothers Produce.
And we can show you why we want to talk to Nancy. Let's walk over here, Nancy. You're okay? This is what is Nancy's business over here, Spicer Brothers Produce. Steve Dunn had mentioned that a lot of the people here are seem to be taking this in stride, trying to put the best face on the situation. And I think Nancy is one of those people. What's going through your mind as you look at the damage down there to your business?
Well, one thing I'm noticing is that the water is down quite a way since yesterday. Yesterday when I came down here, it was just incredible to see this. I mean, I wasn't even prepared for what it was going to be like. I didn't expect the water to be quite that high.
Now, this is something you've been in business for a number of years now, about 10 years or so? 8 years. You have sunk your heart, soul, and a lot of money and a lot of time into this business. You've got a lot of work ahead of you. I just can't imagine what you're going through, not having gone through it myself.
Right. Well, this is our livelihood. I mean, we don't, make any money any other way. This is what we do, and we'll be shut down for a couple weeks, and it's going to be a mess cleaning up. But we've had a lot of people come forward to offer. A lot of people from our church, a lot of customers, just people really want to help. My phone's ringing all the time, and that is just so incredible to me, that the way the people have come forward. Wednesday night we had 60 people from our church show up and move everything out, and they saved us. They really saved us.
I got to tell you, I know Steve Dunn is listening, and Jeff Gianola. We all love to hear those kinds of stories, and we've been hearing a lot of those stories, so it's inspiring on kind of the morning after the wrath here to hear that kind of news that people were out here.
Of the Lake Oswego Point restaurant there, and Kevin, on our television screen we're seeing
there
your
was part
back
of our
deck.
patio from yesterday.
Yeah, floating down downtown Portland, the Willamette River. Now, did you see this on television when we showed it yesterday?
Yeah, it left the building here about 12:10, and I think you guys had it on a little after 2 o'clock, so it took that long to get down to downtown. The water just kept coming up, and it's on what's called a dolphin, where the concrete barges used to come up, and before this was built up into residential and commercial. And got to the top. The dolphin is still there, but the top is gone. And currently, the restaurant is fine. The water that's being diverted down from Lake Oswego across State Street is coming down Foothills Road, which is the access road to the restaurant. The volunteers and the city has done a real good job of controlling that. There is about 4 feet of standing water, or I should say running water, through the different low points of the parking lot, and then it goes down either side of the restaurant into the river. We will be closed today. We have several parties that were scheduled and the crew, so I'm trying to get that word out also. Most likely we'll be closed tomorrow. So it's just a problem of getting to the restaurant, but we are high and dry at this point.
Well, Kevin Kallstad from the Lake Oswego Point Restaurant, you've got a very nice establishment there, and I'm sure you'll be rebuilding the deck, because I'm sure this is now somewhere off in the Columbia on its way to the Great Pacific Ocean. Thanks, Kevin, and our hearts are with all those folks who suffered damage out there.
Let's go now to Lake Oswego, and Ken Cole is there to bring us up to date. What's it looking like, Ken?
Steve, it's looking pretty scary out here. We're off of South Shore Boulevard, looking across down here at the main canal off the Tualatin, flowing through here, and the water has come up just frighteningly fast in the last several hours. You can see some of the damage right in here. A lot of houseboats have been taken out. The boats themselves have been caught underneath the rising tide and destroyed. This is not the worst of it, though. Down on Sarah Hill,
Boulevard, there are several homes that are apparently consumed by the water. That water just came up so rapidly. I wanted to switch over and talk to David Beckett. He's one of the folks out here that's been scrambling.
Now, as we watch this video, let's get Ernie on the phone. Hello, Mr. Cook.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, it's been quite dramatic. I've experienced this probably 1,000 times in my mind, and I've been viewing it quite a few times on the TV. But dramatic footage of the power of the awesome force of Mother Nature at hand, right there before your eyes.
Ernie, where were you when all this happened? You weren't inside your truck. Where were you standing?
I was. I'm the guy running down the hill behind the truck, chasing it.
Oh my gosh!
I was inside my garage speaking with your producer. He'd stopped up there, and we were talking prior to this happening, and I was showing him some of the damage that is taken from the power of the rain, the water, and the mud, and what had happened to the house that we're working on. I had this gut feeling that I should be getting out of here. Trying to get out when your producers stopped and we chit-chatted a bit. The next thing we knew as we were standing in the garage, we heard a loud crash and a lot of soupy noise, and house, I mean the hillside comes sliding down the hill and wiping out my ladders and planks in the garage, my truck. I felt that my life was just being erased as it was pushed down the hill. I'm out of business for sure. I had no idea where my truck was going to end up.
It's coming down the hill here.
Ernie, what in the world? I mean, you had to have been amazed when you saw your truck was actually okay.
I ran down the hill. I was behind the slide. When I got to the Y at Verta Vista and Monte Vista, I spotted my truck kind of just side there. A bunch of mud and everything up around it, and I thought, oh boy, I got really lucky here. God just...
Oh boy, Ernie, you'll be telling this story for years to come, and I'm sure showing friends and relatives this video for years to come.
It's a reenactment. It kind of gets the adrenaline flowing every time you see it.
Now, Ernie, as soon as everything calmed down up there on Monte Vista Drive, what did you were able to drive that truck away?
Yeah, I was. It was, as you can see, there was a considerable amount of debris that my truck was under my truck. I was able to dig stuff away to get into the door, and I started it and decided that, well, I'll give it a shot, and locked it up in four-wheel low and see if I could get any movement. And I got a couple inches of movement, and I rocked back and finally spit myself out.
What a rig there.
And then shook it off and sit there and went, oh.
Not much more you can do, I guess.
Ernie, we understand the area up there. There's actually some homes that have sort of been condemned right now. They're keeping people out of that area because it's still very, very unstable up there.
Yes, that's what I understand. I need to get up there and try and reclaim what I can of my equipment and stuff, and I was waiting to find some more things, find out more information so that I could get up there and try and start putting my life and business back together again.
Okay, Ernie, the best wishes to you, and we're glad you're safe. You can lose all the property in the world, but not your life, and we're glad you're safe. Thanks, Ernie. Ernie Cook, some dramatic pictures here.
50,000 cubic feet of dirt. That was the latest mudslide here at I-5. That is more than twice what came down on Thursday. That mudslide that they thought they'd had cleaned up when they were just getting ready to open the roadway, and then insult was added to injury, and here you have it. Now, there is some news in terms of what their plans are. They're planning to move all of this dirt about a quarter of a mile north, and they're going to dump it there. They're hoping that that's going to allow them to open the roadway somewhat. But the latest is that they definitely plan to have about 2 lanes of traffic open here by noon. And that is some really good news, because right now, as you can see, there's just this 1 lane. And what's happening is that the state police are basically piloting traffic north and south, and they're pretty much taking turns. So when they get this next lane open, at least then there'll be 2-way traffic, and it'll be a lot smoother, but nothing like the 6 lanes that we're used to having up here. Jeff and Steve?
Okay, absolutely incredible. Major route I-5. Thank you, Barbara. I-5 blocked from here to Seattle.
The river is cresting. It is a moving river, obviously. The fire department says it actually crested in the Forest Grove area and in Dilley yesterday, and that the Tualatin River here in Tualatin crested shortly after midnight, and the river forecasters are saying it will crest later on in west Lynn. So you've got a situation of moving water, and at different places it is cresting. So when you say the Tualatin River is cresting, you have to make sure where you're talking about it, because as we know, it's a long river, goes 40 or 50 miles. A couple of notes here from the fire department just a few minutes ago. How much flooding is there in the Tualatin area? Well, 29 homes have been evacuated, 97 apartment units, and 85 businesses, most of them around the Tualatin Commons, this relatively new business park here in Tualatin. And there are a couple of concerns that public officials have to those people who have had some flooding that they want to address, and that is, if you have been flooded out and you're using a hose to try and clean up all that mud, they're asking you not to use the hose, at least not now, because this is on the Bull Run water system, as is most of Portland, and they're trying to conserve water. So don't use your hose, no matter how tempting you want to clean up that muck. And don't wash your car. And if your car is like mine, it probably needs washing after this last couple of weeks of weather, so don't wash your car. Don't do laundry, and don't do some of the other things that are not essential as far as what they're seeing. As far as the water levels here in Tualatin at the business park, it is receding, but ever so slowly. The Tualatin River, as we've been talking about, goes into the Willamette, and until the Willamette drops, the Tualatin cannot recede as fast as other rivers and streams we're seeing out throughout other parts of western Oregon. So the situation here in Tualatin is sort of on hold. Nobody can go back into their house who's been evacuated, and the businesses cannot go into those businesses until the water recedes. There's no reason to sandbag, and so basically everybody is in a holding pattern down here. We're seeing a lot of folks come down and look, and I swear that everybody in Tualatin owns a home video camera. They're down here taking pictures of the flooding, of each other, of us, and of course it is really something to see, something that you only see once or twice in a lifetime. So that's about it from Tualatin, and we'll throw it back to you.
Okay, we'll check back with you and check that river level a little later. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, we talk so much.
As we say, from the air, exactly, sometimes to get your bearings. You're not used to seeing the landscape like this, and it's sometimes hard to tell exactly where we're flying over.
And maybe it's just me, Jeff, but it seems to get muddier by the day, doesn't it? It is amazing as we look overhead here. And once again, as we've been saying for the last couple of days, you don't really get a good perspective of what's going on until you really go to the air and get a shot of this like this. And so many people out today walking around their neighborhoods, walking downtown. Of course, down at the Willamette River downtown, they finally opened up that walkway, and folks are down there checking it all out for the very first time and just amazed by what they're seeing. And like we just heard from John Chambers there in Tualatin, so many folks out of their homes today, and will be for quite a length of time because of all this. It looks to me, I'm trying to get my bearings straight here, but it does look like the Lake Oswego area there, Jeff.
And some of the canals there. And once again, the Tualatin flowing into the Lake Oswego, then that emptying into the Willamette. It's important to note that the Tualatin does eventually empty into the Willamette. We talk about debris and various things in the water, and that's an important point to note. That water is extremely hazardous. If you come in contact with it, you have to disinfect. You have to clean it off.
And it's important to point that out again. We can't emphasize that enough, especially with so many kids now home for the weekend. No school, obviously, today or tomorrow. And you got to be careful out there in those waters, although as a kid, no doubt about it, you'd like to probably jump in there and have some fun. This is indeed Lake Oswego in Clackamas County. And you'd like to have some fun in the waters, but it's not a safe thing to do whatsoever. How many city officials have told us don't get near it? Mayor Vera Katz told us over and over again, stay out of the water. It can be very, very dangerous.
Okay, and you just look at the water, white water, just rushing down some of the, water goes to wherever it can find its lowest point, and in some cases, those are homes, parking lots, apartment buildings, and that's what it's doing right now as the water tries to find a place to go.
Look at a rush right there, Jeff. That is something. And as we've said over and over again also, we'll be hearing for days and weeks to come. You'll be talking to your friends 2 weeks from now, your relatives a couple weeks from now, and everybody will have a story to tell about this one.
It's interesting to note, Steve, and this started happening yesterday, and I can't stress this enough. There was some optimism over, well, the Willamette's crested in downtown Portland. Everyone in downtown Portland says, well, that's great. Let me tell you, the real problem spots, Lake Oswego right now, Westland, Oregon City. We just heard from Mark Hass from Tualatin. That Tualatin River is causing a lot of problems. I can't stress that enough. It is crested in some places it continues to rise. And that Tualatin River, those river systems are connected. That's causing problems in Lake Oswego, as we're seeing here, and causing problems for those folks where that joins the Willamette. So some incredible pictures we're seeing this morning in some areas that are continuing to be problem spots, even though you may just notice what's going on in downtown Portland. Don't forget there are friends and neighbors who are still in a crisis situation this morning.
And as our producer aptly pointed out, Jeff, streets becoming creeks here in front of our very eyes. This looks like the Selwood area to me. Does it not? Does that not look like that building down in Selwood? Maybe I'm turned around, but it looks like that. It's like you mentioned, so many folks like in Lake Oswego and perhaps Tualatin thought, hey, when the flood first hit, you know, maybe we've been spared by all of this, and they were not. And as we told you last night, Lake Oswego, downtown Lake Oswego was shut down. In fact, they're telling us today, no traffic in Lake Oswego unless absolutely necessary. They're getting completely backed up there, water all over the place in downtown Lake Oswego, and several of those canals there completely backed up off Bryant Road and Jean Road and some of the back streets of Lake Oswego today.
Okay, we're looking at downtown right there, and let's go to Packy, who's on the phone, who's in that area. Hello, Packy. Jeff Gianola, Steve Dunn. Well, we went to the little color right there.
The operators decided at that point to put these huge barrels, build these huge barrels underneath the floor. Well, fortunately, all they had to do was cut loose the floor from its bracing, and the whole floor, there you see it, is just floating up above the water, which has saved the ice rink. We will get on top of the floor itself. Also on top of the floor, if you can see in the background, they have a bunch of material which they've saved from offices. They're also using a lot of that material to help balance the floor on top of the water. It's amazing how this floor has been saved from this flood. You can see all of the material that they've had on top of the floor. This gives you an idea of how much water is inside Oaks Park ice rink, or excuse me, roller rink. What we're looking at here is some part of the water line. We're also looking at the area where they have the huge pipe organ. That has been lifted up off the ground and currently up above the water at this point, so they've been able to save that as well. This is some of the material that's still on the floor itself. Once again, a lot of this stuff was taken out of the offices, put on the floor not only to salvage it, but also to help balance the floor on the water itself. This is the huge pipe structure from the organ itself. Fortunately, this was already up at that level, so that was not raised. It pretty much stays at that point. It's just amazing, once again, on how back in 1948 they decided to go ahead and plan for this type of situation, put those huge barrels underneath the floor, and actually allow it to just float up and save it from the water. One thing that we're not seeing at this point is a lot of the amusement rides, which Jeff and Steve were also devastated in this flood. The big concern right now is the electrical systems. They removed the computer systems from much of the rides, and they'll salvage that. But once again, the electrical systems, they don't know just how damaged those are going to be because of this flood. It's just amazing footage as you see more of the ice rink here and how far up above the rail. That is actually the rail to the ice rink. Usually that's probably about, what, chest level when you're standing on the ice rink, or the, I keep calling it an ice rink, the roller rink. Mm-hmm. That's usually about chest level, and you can see the floor is up almost to the top of the sides there.
You know, last week it was an ice rink practically, Al, with the temperatures we had. You know, Al, that roller rink, that's just folklore. You have folks saying, you know, if there's ever a flood, there's barrels under there, all they got to do is cut it loose. And some folks said, no, that's an old wives' tale. No, it's not. As Al said, that's exactly what they did, and it works. What a great idea. They load all the equipment on top of the floor for ballast. I understand, Al, that's normally held down with, I don't know, chains or something. They just cut it all loose, and it just floats on up there with the floodwaters, with the barrels underneath all that.
They had it braced with wood, actually, is what I'm told, and so they took chainsaws into the side and just basically cut all around the side of the rink itself to break it away from the walls, and once they did that, well, the whole rink just started floating up above the water. Or with the water, and once again saving it from any damage. Now that's really one point that makes this whole, I guess one lighter side of this is the fact that they've been able to save this. They're very happy with that. Amusement park operators are. They would have been very devastated if this floor would have been ruined. They have plenty of damage to worry about, but are very happy that they've been able to save the floor at this point.
Yeah, it definitely has to make the kids sad to watch this. So many children enjoy Oaks Amusement Park there, Al. I know this next question's out of your area of expertise, but maybe just kind of looking around there, what would you say is the long-term damage there? Is it mostly to the rides and that type of thing then?
Exactly, and some of the structures themselves. I was asking them just what they anticipated the damage to be at this point, and there's no way they want to guess at this point. Once again, a lot of the rides during this time of the year are actually dismantled and stored. Unfortunately, they're stored in some of the nearby warehouses, which also were affected by the flood. One of the big concerns, once again, is the electrical mechanisms within each ride. That's where the damage is going to be found. They removed much of the computer components to save those areas, and they just don't know what the damage is going to be at this point. It's going to take a lot to rebuild it and get it up and operating once this is all dried out.
Yeah, Oaks Amusement Park, one of the many areas that has a lot of work ahead of it. Al Segala, thank you very much.
Thanks,
for that.
Al, for that tour. That was very eerie, going inside the boat right into the roller rink. And kids at home, don't worry.
Apartment and to the Thriftway store.
Hey, Harvey, as we talk to you on the phone here, we're showing some video of folks at the Molalla River there and the debris that's up against a bridge just south of Canby that was brought into us yesterday. There are logs, several logs, obviously, and cars buried underneath those logs, as well as trailers and campers and everything else. You know anything about that little deal there, Harvey?
Well, that's quite a ways downstream from us, but I can tell you, after being out on the river out at our pump station, and my public works director can sure tell you that it's an extremely dangerous situation. The water's still high. It's gone down quite a bit where we are, but there's lots of trees going by, and you just have to be very careful that you don't get hit by a limb as the trees are going by.
Yeah. Harvey, I can imagine, we see what the water's done to the logs and the debris there. I can imagine what that does to a water treatment facility when the water just completely overruns a facility like that.
Yeah, of course, right now, as I said yesterday, we've got a fire engine out of Molalla Rural Fire Protection District. We have a fire engine pumping water for us up into our treatment facility, and we're having to pump pretty much directly out of the river, and it's taken us a long time to clean this water up, and so we're doing the best we can. We're still trying to fill the reservoir and get things going. Unfortunately, we had a power outage this morning that set us back a little bit, but we're still making water, and we just want people to bear with us. You know, no washing cars. I know people want their cars clean, but please don't wash your cars. No outside water. Don't use any water unless you absolutely have to right now. And certainly, if you're going to drink the tap water, boil it.
Yeah, good point.
Understand that.
Harvey, we should also tell people, thank you, Harvey, for that call today, City of Molalla. We should also tell people, Jeff, we look at that video, a lot of that debris was kind of...
And you can get an idea of the water level if you're just joining us on the Willamette. The Willamette is going down ever so slowly. It's still at a very high water mark, but it is starting to recede ever so slowly. And OMSI was one of those areas, Steve, where a lot of efforts were focused to prevent flooding. They had so much water in the basement there. They had pumps going. They were pumping water out of there, and they were successful. So look at that, OMSI on a Saturday morning, and traffic flowing smoothly on the Markham Bridge.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back. The Flood of 96 continues. Stay with us.
Yard here in Tualatin, and a lot of lumber now is flooding and traveling throughout the Tualatin Business Park, which is under about 4 feet of Tualatin River. And this has been happening throughout the night, although I don't know we've seen quite a parade of lumber flowing out there like we are right now. It's traveling down the flooded riverbanks of the Tualatin River into over by the Fred Meyer parking lot, about a quarter of a mile away. Let's get back over to the lumber yard. You can see more lumber coming out of there now. Some of this lumber was stacked up inside the Clark Lumberyard warehouse, and obviously all of that inside is flooded out, and now it's just leaving the lumber yard and just going right through the parking lot. The water there is about 4 feet deep. I think the pictures pretty much explain themselves. This is the Tualatin River. We are about a half mile from the Tualatin River. At this point, it crested last night, and although it's receding very slowly, and it's still many houses, 29 houses, underwater at this point in the Tualatin River flood bank area. And this is the Tualatin Valley Commons Business Park. And what you're seeing is lumber from the Clark True Value Hardware Lumber Yard that is now floating away.
Oh, yeah, there has to be thousands of dollars in lumber there, Mark, floating out of there. And for folks, you know, watching this is important to see because so many people say, hey, the flood's over. It's far from over.
You're right, Steve. There's still some serious problems here in Tualatin, not to mention the fact that there are still 29 homes that have been evacuated, 97 apartment units, and 85 businesses that are completely closed down. There's some water problems here, and there are the problems of health and safety. Again, we want to remind people that this water is not clean water. In fact, you can see some of these sandbags here, and you can see water on both sides of that. Well, we were asking some of these people, okay, if you've got the sandbags out, how did water come through here? And their answer was, well, it came up through the storm drains and through the sewage basins. So water that's being backed up is not just from the flood, it's just backing up through the sewers.
It's the gravity situation there, and we saw that bubbling up in Tualatin. The manhole covers just popped up, raw sewage, everything else came floating right up to the surface. And besides lumber, we saw some drain pipe, the flexible drain pipe floating out of there, and this is almost a log jam of expensive lumber out there in Tualatin as the floodwaters continue to damage businesses out that way and homes.
Has something now in common with the Willamette River. They both have plenty of debris in there now as we continue to look at that the lumber that's come out of that lumber yard there. I feel for those folks that own that lumber yard too, Mark, because it's got to be frustrating for them just to watch it all float away.
Yes, and it's going to be frustrating for those folks who are going to have to clean it up, because this is all, you know, you've got, you saw how many, you know, hundreds and hundreds of 2x4s and 4x6s now strewn across about a half mile of parking lots through downtown Tualatin over to the Fred Meyer and Kmart parking lots, and there's a lot of land there. It's all underwater, and I'm looking now, you can't see this, but it's maybe a half mile away through there, through the Fred Meyer parking lots, and you're looking at some of the people who've come down here to have a look-see. But there is just expensive finished dimension lumber for about a quarter of a mile throughout these floodwaters here in the parking lot of the Tualatin Valley Commons Business Park.
You know, Mark, I mentioned this before. Normally, this is one area that is just congested during business hours on a weekend like this. Folks getting in and out. It's a major thoroughfare area, a major business center. And I'm just struck at what Mother Nature can do. Just very, very quickly is just turn that...
Start to run into each other after a while, don't they, Jeff? February 10th and about 10 minutes to 11. You are watching Channel 2 News in Portland. I'm Steve Dunn, Jeff Gianola.
And the year is 1996. Hey, Interstate 5, major problem. Traffic moving smoothly again, and Barbara Wood is standing by. She's been following the situation for us. Barbara?
Yeah, you're looking at traffic right now northbound on I-5. Northbound and southbound traffic are sharing one lane at this time. They're relying on pilot cars, and pretty much north and south are taking their turns using this one lane. And now you're getting a look at some Caterpillars. This is Burlington Northern here, trying to unearth the tracks. We understand this second landslide that came down last night is about 50,000 cubic feet of soil, mud here. So they're just pulling that over to the side, and eventually that mound is going to wind up about a quarter of a mile north. This has been really frustrating for Burlington Northern because they haven't had a train run through, let's see, Vancouver.
Out the guardrails and roared across the interstate. Crews working around the clock to clear that right now. They're putting on a heroic effort there to get traffic moving once again. A major east-west route remains blocked off in Oregon at this hour. And you just get an idea of the power of nature. There's the railroad tracks that were taken out in that same area. And if we keep these pictures rolling a little bit, it even took out a home, Steve. So they call this an active slide. It kept moving, and they have to be very careful when they're working on it, because if they take dirt or rocks out of one location, it could trigger problems in another location. And that's the view in the Columbia River. F-15 jets from the Portland Air Base. They moved them over to the golf course across the way. And what a sight that is. What an unusual sight. They wanted to move those jets to higher ground. 2 nights ago they started that. And just as a precaution, and that's what they did there.
Yeah, I remember photographer Phil Beard, when he brought these pictures back to us, said, for you golfers, make sure you don't shank it off and hit one of the jets. But anyway,
there's a bottom deck to the steel bridge that cars don't go on. That's reserved for the railroad. There's railroad tracks on there, and this debris is pushed up against that. There's fear that that could start to structurally weaken the steel bridge, because that's tons and tons of debris. So you heard Mayor Katz said they're going to get a tugboat with a crane and get in there today and start to lift this debris. And look at that stuff, Steve. Look at that odd collection of stuff.
Let's go back to the sky here and look down once again in perspective. This is a big old ship out there in the Columbia. As we look at the rivers, also we should mention to people perhaps just tuning in that the Willamette and Columbia rivers are both closed to all non-emergency traffic. That includes commercial and pleasure traffic. A cargo ship filled with grain ran aground the Columbia this morning. It happened just south of the town of Escamakawa, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Washington, near the Bonneville Locks. 7 Jeff tugboats have been unable to free the vessel, which is also carrying more than 100,000 gallons of fuel, they tell us, but the Coast Guard officials say they'll try again later this evening. So far, no significant pollution has been reported, but there again, Coast Guard shutting down those rivers.
Okay, look at the homes lining the Columbia. That'll give you an idea of the Columbia. We focused a lot of attention on the Willamette. Now we're flying north out of Portland up towards southwest Washington. And Steve, look at some of those homes, some of those historic homes that are along the Columbia there, and that gives you an idea of how wide this river is running this morning.
And how widespread the problem is, too. You know, you may think it's only your backyard, but look at this.
It's almost as if the ship could sail on up to these, onto these homes, and the trees just covered up. And that's just giving us an idea. We love going to the air like this with Chopper 2, so you can get an idea of exactly how widespread the flooding problem really is.
Hey, Jeff, I got to tell you, Escamakawa is the correct pronunciation. I think I said Escamakawa.
That's okay. You've been out here a long time.
Well, even if I hadn't been out here a long time, I probably would have said it the same way. But nonetheless, it is Escamakawa, Washington, near Bonneville Locks, where this cargo ship filled with grain ran aground.
Steve, look at this picture here. You can't find dry land in this picture. And it's just incredible, the width of the mighty Columbia as it reclaims some land with this latest flood.
You know, talking to our reporters down there at the river, Kern Snipes earlier today, they've all said that the debris seems to have lessened today. And that's definitely a good sign as they get those tugboats ready with a crane to remove the debris against the steel bridge. I wonder if we could possibly, at some point, get Kern Snipes back in here to talk to us. Kern, are you out there at all? Apparently he is not up and running at this point, but as soon as we can get him up, we'll get him going and talk about the efforts to clear out that steel bridge. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, and we were talking about how we were struck with the beauty of what a beautiful day it is outside, and almost the ugliness of what's going on the river. And we saw a nice shot of Mount St. Helens there, and you can see the water coming over some of the dike systems there along the Columbia.
More traffic problems. I'm assuming...
This looks like over the Lewis River as we're moving up.
You know, we got a call last night, Jeff, of course, with I-5 up in the Woodland area shut down last night. People not able to get up to Tacoma, Seattle.
Big problems if you're heading up north or if you're heading down from the south, down from Seattle.
Not too many things more frustrating than sitting in traffic for hours at a time with just no hope in sight as far as moving goes. And we've all been doing that the last couple of days all over our region. You see part of that here as folks just sit and sit and sit. And we're going to continue doing that probably for next day or so anyway until they get some of these mudslides cleared up.
You know, you don't realize the amount of trucks on the road till you see something like this. And I would almost say the trucks outnumber the cars in a jam. Look at that, one right after the other.
You know, how frustrating was it for you last night, Jeff, leaving work at midnight to go home and sitting on I-5 southbound for how long?
For about an hour last night because of that mudslide at the Terwilliger Curve. Look at this, Steve. You're just getting an idea. We focused on Portland, and as we move into southwest Washington, look at these little communities off of I-5, all along there, Woodland, communities around the Woodland around the Lewis River. And look at this. I mean, look at just how the devastation of the floodwaters.
As we move toward Woodland, of course, our Barbara Wood has been there covering that whole situation for certainly today. And she's going to bring us up to date on what's happening there as far as the cleanup efforts. We saw the big cats out there cleaning things up. Just look how high that water is.
And the cars parked in the driveway there and the water up to the rooftop. So that'll give you an idea of how deep that water is right there on this flat land right here. And look at, Steve, a neighborhood right behind there untouched.
And into the lake, filled it to the point where it was just overflowing, nature taking its own course, although they worked desperately to lay out a lot of sandbags in that area to try to direct the water down into the foothills area and back into the Willamette River. But there's so much water flowing through there that it just backed up a tremendous amount. In a lot of those businesses there, they were talking about 3 feet of water piling up through the area. And of course, a lot of that water eventually backed up to the point where there were several homes that were involved. Sarah Hill Lane was one of the most devastating areas. Beginning yesterday, actually, when they saw the major water rise, came into a lot of the people's homes in there. Unfortunately, a lot of folks, even though they lived on the canals, do not have flood insurance here, and that has been a problem. Although we talked to one gentleman earlier, he was also on Sarah Hill Lane, and he did have flood insurance, even though, ironically, he tried to get his mortgage company to drop it. They fought him, and he's going to luck out and be able to maintain that insurance, and although he's not really sure at this point how much that insurance will cover. So the problem continues here, although the water has come down slightly. It was flowing over Bryant Street here in Lake Oswego, but it's now rolling underneath the structure there. But it's certainly not coming down as fast as these folks would like here.
Hey, Ken, what about the traffic through there? I know we talked earlier that the police would like folks to stay away and just kind of watch this on television, but there still seems to be a lot of traffic going through.
You know, it's been a real headache out here. I know, folks, this is really history in the making here. I can understand human nature, people wanting to come out and see this, but it's real problematic. In fact, we've been trying to get around town to get some more shots, but this particular street here is backed up, and it's backed up consistently all around the lake. People are having a real hard time getting around today, and that's a problem for emergency vehicles if they do have to rush people in and out of this area.
Their roofs are the only thing you can see out of the water. Problem here in Lake Oswego, as we were talking about, is the Tualatin River, which burst over the dam and swept into canals. But as the water filled the lake, it had nowhere else to go. But through many of the homes here, Ken Cole shows us the damage.
The Lake Oswego Canal continues its assault on some of the most expensive real estate in the Portland area. At Jerry Wambach's home, they got everything out in time with the help of neighbors. Wambach ironically tried to cancel his flood insurance, but failed.
I fought. I didn't want to get flood insurance. When I refinanced several years ago, they forced me to get it. But I'm not sure what it covers at this point, so we'll see what happens.
Early in the day, the water swept over State Street as a flooded Lake Oswego had nowhere else to go. That forced some people to find some creative transportation. Several businesses along the lakefront were also flooded despite frantic efforts to shore them up with sandbags.
So what we have is the Willamette River here to the east. Right here beside us, just a few yards from the Willamette River, we have Lake Oswego. And then pouring into Lake Oswego is the Tualatin River on to the west.
Sure.
So we have 3 main bodies of water, and we're surrounded right now.
The people here along Sarah Hill Drive in Lake Oswego have been among the hardest hit. When the water first started to rise yesterday, you can see they've had no relief here today. But even those who've lost just about everything in the floodwater say they're amazed at the charity of their neighbors.
Carrying furniture out, sandbagging, putting plywood up, doing anything you could to really stay off this water. And It was just a great effort.
Unfortunately for too many, it was an effort that failed. But by mid-afternoon, some small signs that the water was beginning to recede. It no longer rushed across Bryant Drive, but swept just below it. Still, any relief comes too late for scores of homeowners along the canals, many without flood insurance. In Lake Oswego, Ken Cole, Channel 2 News.
Certainly flood insurance here in Lake Oswego. And of course, the Lake Oswego is supposed to empty into the Tualatin River, but the problem there is the water is just so high, it's not doing that. Now, Mark Hass has been following what has been happening in Tualatin. Let's go to him now to see what's happening there. Mark?
Well, we have actual whitewater going through downtown Tualatin, floodwaters from the Tualatin River, which here crested shortly after midnight. The good news is it is receding here in Tualatin. Still, there are many people who have no place to go tonight. Their homes are flooded out, and there are many businesses that cannot open. Nevertheless, there is hope here that the worst is over. A half-mile away from the Tualatin River, downtown Tualatin is still underwater. 85 businesses are closed. How powerful is the water? Watch how it carries away thousands of dollars of wood from this Tualatin lumberyard. Another business flooded out, a clinic for animals.
It's scary. That was scary. And they were all, I think they sensed last night what was going on. You know, we came in and they were wide-eyed and back to the back of the cages. We had 2 dogs and 6 or 7 cats last night. And I think the dogs might have been excited, but the cats were really afraid.
29 families have been flooded out of their homes. Harry Brown ferried his belongings to dry land in a canoe.
Well, we're paddling around in this river. I can't believe it. I live in a house not too far from here, and I've never seen anything like this before.
The worst hit, though, these apartments on the banks of the Tualatin River. 97 floor-level units are under 6 feet of water. The only way into the apartments for flood victims and journalists is by water.
You getting your stuff out? Yeah, just a little clothes and stuff.
Some found shelter in a nearby church.
The girls' toys and clothing, their beds, the crib for the little one, that type of stuff is what really upsets me. The momentous type stuff, you know, like their baby books and pictures.
Must be hard.
Yeah, it is.
The painful story is easy to see in faces like this, as more than 200 people have been forced out of their homes, and no one except Mother Nature knows when they can return.
Where police have found a flooded pickup truck, not the driver. The vehicle was pulled from floodwaters over Highway 99 East, just north of Salem. Police say an eyewitness saw a man drive a brown 1980 Datsun pickup into the water, but he never came out. More than 100 people were watching today as the truck was pulled out, but no one was found inside the cab. State police are still searching for the driver. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard has its hands full tonight with this 728-foot cargo ship. The ship is grounded on the Columbia River near Scamokawa, Washington. An initial attempt to free the vessel failed this morning. Up to 9 tugboats will try to refloat that ship around 5:30 tonight. The Oregon coast was also hammered by flooding rivers. Fuel
for the grisly chore of counting up dead cows in dairy-rich Tillamook County is now underway. Nearly 100 cows and calves drowned at this farm, about half the owner's entire spread. In Landholt's house, where the water was more than a foot deep, his dad and a friend pull up the carpet, while his mom vacuums up a sheet of water that never seems to go away. They say the work keeps their minds occupied, but the stress is getting to everyone.
The kids are having a tough time the way it is, because it just came up so fast. It's hard for me to talk. It hurts.
Yet through all this adversity, Pat Landholt says the house can be cleaned and the livestock replaced. It all could have been far worse.
There's been animals lost, but at least no lives have been lost out of it. And I'm amazed because as much water as there was around the county, that nobody lost their lives. And to me, that's more important than material things.
In Tillamook County, Grant McComey, Channel 2 News.
The river for a see for themselves. It is a festival-like atmosphere. I was down there with my family myself this afternoon. Almost everyone brings a camera, so they'll have a picture to prove they saw the Great Flood of '96. Most sightseers say the river looks a lot different in person than it does on television. A lot bigger and, of course, a lot muddier. But what about the river levels? Still a problem tonight.
And at that point, have a detailed list of your losses ready for the claims adjuster. Mark Sanchez, News Center 6.
Well, coping with flood damage.
Barely see it. Looks like the rapids instead of falls. The damage is widespread across Clackamas County. Channel 2's Michael Hanna shows us how one family is coping with all of this.
The stranded feline was finally coaxed out of the water, out of the tree and into the water. Two canoeists braved the floodwaters to finally rescue the reluctant kitty. They were able to pull the cat to safety, but almost ended up in the water themselves. So a happy ending to that story. And again, here in
They have to handle the hydraulics on those bridges that go up and down.
And because the Willamette is so full tonight, that of course has been causing problems for the Tualatin River, which feeds into it back 100 years.
We have been surprised by how high the flood elevations have been. The Tualatin Commons project with the new public lake that was just built in the last 2 years was built with its elevations up above the 100-year floodplain.
Today, the Tualatin Commons is flooded, and people who live here have all gathered at the water's edge to take a look.
We live up the hill where it's dry, but I'm just amazed that I had no idea it was going to come up like this.
The businesses are going to get hammered. It's unsettling.
In the Fred Meyer parking lot, a car sits nearly submerged. The only way to go through drive-through right now is by boat. 30 stores report flood damage. There's standing water inside the grocery store and at the insurance office. The entire downtown business core has been swamped.
It is amazing. It is, inundated with water, large numbers of spectators and whatnot. Places that you're used to driving and walking on are suddenly places you couldn't even swim.
It will be days before the floodwaters recede, days until business owners can get in to clean up.
We know that it's going to be 2 days or so before we really see substantial water withdrawing, because Tualatin's flood stage is a slow welling up kind of flooding that takes a long, long time then to drain back out again.
In Tualatin, Kelly Love, KGW Northwest News, Channel 8.
And when you in the middle of the Willamette River on a 41-foot boat, and there you can see one of the problems that they're dealing with now. The biggest problem is floating debris floating down the Willamette River. That is taken right near the Selwood Bridge. You see a tugboat there is trying to push some of these debris out of the area because they are concerned about what kind of structural damage this may do to the support beams there you see on the Selwood Bridge. And really what you can see on top of the water isn't their main concern, even though there are a lot of logs and problems there. They're concerned about the kind of damage it's doing underneath to those posts. Now, further down the river, we saw this problem near the Selwood Bridge as well. These are houseboats, more than a dozen, probably 24 houseboats here that are being pushed into place, held back by 3 tugboats here you see. They have not floated down the Willamette River because of the efforts of these 3 tugboats, but they are still there. We saw those last night with an infrared camera, and today they're still chugging along, but there is quite a bit of damage there on those houseboats, and that is a problem. And as we make our way to another section of the Willamette River tour, thanks to the U.S. Coast Guard, you see some more debris. This is debris at the Oaks Park Amusement Park, as well. Right there, you're looking at gawkers up and down lining the Willamette River today. The U.S. Coast Guard says the Willamette is now traveling at about 10 knots. That is, of course, a nautical speed, which is about equivalent to 10 miles an hour. To give you an example, a relative example of what that means, normally it goes about 2 to 3 miles an hour, the Coast Guard tells me. The Sheriff Patrol, Multnomah County Sheriff Patrol, was out there as well, and a big problem they're having is with people that are out there in recreational boats, pleasure boats. As you know, the Coast Guard today and for the last couple of days has banned all pleasure boats from the Willamette and the Columbia River, and they are having...
They're at a dangerously low level because they've been contaminated by the floods. Just one of many problems left by the flood waters in the Pacific Northwest, where most of the rivers have crested, but the disaster is hardly over. Here's ABC's Brian Rooney.
Several towns along the major rivers and tributaries still have problems. This is downtown Oregon City on the Willamette River. Nearby is Tualatin, also flooded. The water from Tualatin drains into Lake Oswego, where some of the streets are running like river rapids. The Interstate 5 north of Portland was still blocked this morning by a giant landslide. Also this morning, rescuers pulled an empty pickup truck from a creek north of Salem. The driver was last seen moving a barrier and driving onto a flooded road. Authorities say there may be other people missing as the floodwaters recede. Some of the home videos of the week's disasters are beginning to emerge. Here was a mudslide in a Portland suburb filmed by a man in a quickly retreating truck.
Get going, get going!
A few people are getting back in to survey the damage. Bill Keene looked over the remains of his lumber business.
We've got 30 families that doesn't have a job right now, and we're going to have to relocate the business and buy some new machinery that's underwater.
In the Columbia River Valley, the floodwaters have spread into the farmlands, blending farmhouses with ships and far-off mountains. The flood has a certain beauty, but when the damage is totaled, the bill is going to be high. Brian Rooney, ABC News, Portland, Oregon.
The investigation into the cause of that airline...
Did spill onto the walkway at River Place, never got high enough to damage any items in, for example, an import shop. The River Place Cafe in Delhi wasn't quite so lucky. Water did seep into the restaurant, causing damage to the floor. And there you can see, picking up all that wet carpet.
And the whole floor has to come out, and the carpet has to come out, and all that, so...
What a mess. Most downtown Portland business owners sharing the same relief, though, compared to what they thought they might get. And some other hard-hit businesses in this very area, they came through the floods pretty well.
And you can see that contractors are going to be in big demand.
They have deeply covered all of Interstate 5, except for a lone emergency lane on the southbound side. Traffic must alternate in both directions. The backup stretches for miles and miles and miles. And just south in Woodland, the Lewis River is falling today. Some people are able to get back to homes, but as we painfully see from the air, many more houses have a long way to go before they are on dry ground again. In Sky 8, Larry Shoup, KGW Northwest News Channel 8.
It is a black and white version of today's flood damage. December 1964, Portland Harbor reached 30 feet higher in surrounding areas.
How high was the water here, Bill? It was 32.5 inches, as near as I can find out, according to watermark on my lace curtain on the front door and inside on the wall.
Thousands of Oregonians were evacuated. The state was declared a disaster area, but even the experts could not foresee it would happen again so soon.
Actually, this flood would occur about once every 200 years. I would say that perhaps happen about as often as your next-door neighbor's wife having triplets twice in a row.
Now, 32 years later, rivers are raging, dams are stressed, and people's homes and businesses are in jeopardy. The other great floods. In 1894, Portland Harbor reached 28.7 feet. People made their way through Portland's downtown in rowboats, and the fire department used a barge to make its way through town. In 1923, another big hit when Portland Harbor reached 25.3 feet. A similar flood in 1948. But most living Oregonians remember 1964 as the big one, the real disaster.
Was everything ruined? Did you save something? Well, I saved but very little, tell the truth. I didn't expect anything like this.
And some worry December 1964 will be copied in February of 96. In Portland, Sheila Hamilton, Channel 2 News.
Okay, boy, history does have a way of repeating itself. Some other weather, went through the big windstorm. Let's look back. Columbus Day storm. I know you went through that. That was one heck of a blow, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had the marina out there at Wilsonville. It blew a few trees and limbed Wilsonville.
Take a look at the screen, everybody, here in our town hall audience, and that's the way it was. Black and white film back then. It was absolutely incredible. Let's go to George Miller, retired from the National Weather Service. George, how long did you work for Portland's National Weather Service?
13 years.
How many years?
13.
13 years.
Second time.
Second time around. George, the Columbus Day storm, when we look back on that, is that the granddaddy of all windstorms?
Well, it was a very strong one. I was working at the airport, and I remember the brick building shaking that particular evening. But in as far back as we could see, that was perhaps the strongest winds that had occurred. There are a lot of other incidents. Lewis and Clark, when they were here, recorded a very, very strong windstorm on November 22nd.
The man sitting next to you may be a familiar face, former television weatherman. He has his own forecasting service. Phil Voker joins us. Phil, you were here for the 62 blow.
I was 9 years old. It was an event that solidified my desire to be a weatherman. After that was over with, I decided this was too fascinating, but I was scared to death, you guys. We I grew up in Vancouver and by Keegan's Bowl, and we had many big trees around the house, and they all blew down, but all of them blew south to north. So our main road was fine, but the park, Keegan's Bowl, was a mess for weeks, for months. Heck of an event.
Compare it to that last big blow we just went through in December, Phil.
Oh, well, I think that the big difference was that we didn't have the strong winds in the valley. The coast got hit very hard for the Columbus Day and of course, the valley. But the last event on December 12th, we really got lucky, I think, in the Willamette Valley. We had strong winds, but it wasn't quite the Columbus Day storm.
Okay, we talked about the wind. Let's get back to the flooding. When we talk about floods, everyone, the old-timers, talk about Vanport. Show of hands. Who remembers Vanport? That's going back into the 40s.
Hate to raise your hand.
Come on, admit it. The year was what, George?
1948.
And
it was a different type of flood than we just went through. Because
okay, let's explain to folks. Vanport, where Vanport was, is what is it now?
Well, it's the racetrack and the area around there.
The Delta Park area, Delta Park, and that was a flood. And why was that a different flood from what we just went through?
It was primarily a snowmelt flood, although there was some very warm rains in May. But all the snow melted, came down the Columbia River, and then Columbia River kind of backs up the Willamette River. That was the same type of flood that the 1894 flood was, where the record of 33 feet was set in the Portland Harbor.
Absolutely incredible as we take a look back at these pictures. I mean, that wiped out a whole community that never rebuilt.
That's correct.
And I believe a few people died in that. And that displaced a community. Who knows how many? Did that displace a community of how many was in Vanport? I believe a few thousand? How many?
27,000, I think, altogether.
Absolutely incredible.
I think it was over 20,000.
And they never did rebuild.
Oh, no.
Down there. They never did rebuild. Show the folks what you brought. We can't see all the pictures, but he has a whole album here of past weather. So when we go through these weather events, we think, boy, these are new and unique. But look at this. He just has this filled.
Here's
old pictures.
Yeah, you're looking north across.
I'll just hold one of these up. They're kind of yellow.
Can't hardly see them. They went through my fire at the shop. But this one's looking. This one's looking north, going Hayden Island.
That's the Hayden Island area.
And Jansen Beach. Yeah, Hayden Island's on the right. My right, or over on this side, and you can't hardly see it there. The water's clear over the dikes. The Columbia Yacht Club, the water was over the top of the dike.
Absolutely incredible. So I guess the question comes up is, as these weather events come on, we think, boy, this is something, but we really have to look back in history. I want you to meet another one of our hot seat guests tonight, and his name is George Taylor. Tell the folks what you do for a living, George.
Well, I'm the state climatologist for the state of Oregon, and I'm on the faculty at Oregon State University. And I guess I'm one of the weather historians here, at least by profession.
George, we've been asking the question, we've seen these violent weather patterns just recently, and we ask, is there something going on that we don't know about?
Well, I think there's something going on that we don't know about, and we can make some suppositions about what those things are.
Well, is it something, when we put it in the context of history, that is unique? Is this unique to our history here?
No, I think we're hearing the message again and again that none of these things are unprecedented. We had a big windstorm, but it really doesn't match, doesn't quite match what we saw in 1962. We had a big flood, but it certainly is not unprecedented historically. What is unusual is to get all of these things in one year. But there are some explanations for that. One of them might be just the chance of a 1 in 25 event happening the same year as another 1 in 25 event, let's say.
I want to get into why, and I know that's what our viewers want in just a moment, but first I want to take a call from one of our Town Hall viewers. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. You're with our weather experts here on Town Hall.
Well, I was raised in the Midwest, and we have quite a bit of tornadoes out there, and of course Oregonians aren't subject to many tornadoes. And then my wife and I in '89 went through the hurricane in we were in North Carolina, so we got hit by Hurricane Hugo, which is another event that is not common to the Oregonians.
No, so what he's saying is that thank God you may have some floods, but we don't have the hurricanes and tornadoes. But Matt, we have had some tornadoes here. Not to the extent they have in the Midwest, but we've had tornadoes here.
We do. We get tornadoes in the Northwest, and with the new National Weather Service Doppler radar, I think we're going to be hearing more and more about those, because one of the things in Oregon, unlike the Midwest or Florida, once you get out of the Willamette Valley, there's not a lot of people out there to see these things or experience tornadoes. So with some new equipment that can actually detect it, I think we'll be finding that, hey, we have more than we thought we had. I think the gentleman's point, though, is, look, we have all the severe weather in other parts of the country. What are you folks whining about? And there are differences. But I think the fact of the matter is we're coming out of a period where we've had some relatively calm, stable weather. There's been a lot of folks that have moved here in the last 10 years, a lot of them from California and from warmer climates, who just haven't experienced more typical wild Northwest weather that we're getting back into.
Matt, we have a caller who I believe moved here from Colorado. Are you on the line? Hello, caller?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
You moved here from Colorado?
Yes, I grew up in Illinois, and I lived for 8 years in Boulder, Colorado. I've experienced some extreme weather in both states. My wife and I moved here in 91, and we thought, this is it. This is the greatest place to live because of the mild winters, and then bang.
Yeah. Now what do you think?
It's incredible. This is just incredible. The last 3 weeks, I cannot believe what I've seen with the wind, the ice, the snow, and now the water. Unreal.
Oh, now we've heard from folks that used to live in the Midwest. Let's look back, because we talk about our winter. It's been a wild winter in the Midwest. Boy, can you believe the temperatures they had there? Record-breaking temperatures. Now, February began in the deep freeze for the upper Midwest. In some places, the temperature plunged to 10, 20, even 50 below zero for several days straight. And remember beating the Florida and the Caribbean area took. And that was with all the hurricanes and the tropical storms, one right after the other. I mean, they were lined up. How many hurricanes did we have this year? The number on that, how many?
19. Oh, it was
11 hit the U.S.
11, and then several more tropical storms.
19 tropical storms.
Right.
Absolutely incredible when you think about it. So what's going on not only with the weather here, but the weather around the world and the country? When we come back on Town Hall, we're going to ask this question. Why does all of this happen? We want to hear from you. Why the wild weather? We started to touch on it just a little bit. We'll be right.
Since many of them global in scope, we're transitioning from that relatively dry, benign period that Matt and some of the other meteorologists refer to, and moving back into the one that we saw in the 60s and early 70s.
Let me ask some of our weather people here, just riddles, and that we're starting to change a cycle right now. Absolutely.
You bet.
You talked about Matt, and I know everyone here, all our weather experts, talk about something called the conveyor belt theory. And Matt, can you hear me over in the weather board?
I sure can, Jeff.
Explain that to us. What are they talking about, conveyor belt theory?
This is a theory that's been put forth in some of the climatological and oceanographic journals. And basically what it is it talks about a flow of warm water ocean current coming essentially starting in the Pacific and flowing out of the Pacific, flowing all the way around above Australia here, through the Indian Ocean, around Africa, and this is bringing warm water up. And what that's doing, the theory goes, is doing several things. First of all, bringing all this warm water up, it's fueling more Atlantic hurricanes. We saw that this year for the first time in several years. This is when the conveyor belt is active and all that warm water is coming up. There's also a below-surface deep water current that's bringing cool water back on out. As far as the Northwest goes, if this is true, more Atlantic hurricanes. Since we're bringing the warm water out of the Pacific Ocean, we'll have less El Niños, because after all, that's what El Niño is a buildup of warm water off the central coast of South America here. So fewer El Niños, because all that warm water is getting pushed out of the Pacific and then coming around again. And with fewer El Niños, we typically see stormier winters here in the Northwest. So that is the conveyor belt theory. And if the theory holds, we are just coming out of a period when the conveyor belt was inactive into a period when the conveyor belt is active, and we should see several winters in a row with more hurricanes in the Atlantic, fewer El Niños, and stormier winters. You have to remember, over the last 10 years, we have seen an extremely large number of El Niños. So if this is true, we may be in for a period with several stormy winters.
Thanks to this. For us, this is dramatic video to watch. For Lori Stowell and her neighbors, it's something to clean up after, one shovelful at a time.
It is solid mud.
a small little shovel seems like it weighs 10 pounds.
And they're just starting to uncover the damage. Down in Stoll's basement, there's more trouble. A sewage drain clogged by mud and debris caused sewer water to flood the basement. And it brought other problems as well. Rats.
We know for sure it's a rat because we caught one, and it was a long one with a long tail.
And as if that's not enough, there are more problems. Another slide in the back of Stoll's house exposed the stilts that support the deck. But that's better than the situation next door. This home has been condemned. Now Stoll has only one thought.
I hope to God that we are stable.
And she hopes she never again sees something like this.
Go, 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 go! Get going, get going! Go, 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 this car!
I'll admit, I'm not a huge rain lover, but I was thrilled to see that stuff today.
After the freeze comes the thaw. And already there are signs of high water. And before the week is over, the flooding may be on local rivers instead of local roads. We expect 3 to 6 inches of rain over the next few days. That, along with snowmelt, may be too much for some streams.
The big thaw is making a big splash. A stream that empties into Rock Creek swamps West Union Road near 185th. Motorists simply muscle their way through the water, spilling over the road because of heavy rain and clogged drainage pipes. Even veteran road crews are impressed with the icy thaw.
It's pretty neat. But probably the aftermath ain't gonna be so great.
Could this trickle eventually turn into a torrent? Experts at the National Weather Service say there is a possibility the warm, heavy rains could eventually spark widespread flooding.
From the other side of town came out to help us, and we appreciate, and we'd do the same for them. Everybody pitched in. People that don't even live in this area coming from the other side of town came out to help us.
People making the morning commute were caught unaware that Fano Creek had come up so much. You could see drivers making the decision whether to forge ahead and drive through the high water or turn around and try a different way.
Floodwaters are causing major headaches for people living in a West Side apartment complex. 30 units in the Cedar Mill Crossing apartments flooded this morning. The water continues to rise. Cedar Mill Creek is normally only a few inches deep. Today it has risen to more than 8 feet.
It looks like this is the first wave of a series of storms headed our way.
Natalie Daly thought it was a nightmare, but she wasn't dreaming. Police were outside her home at 3 in the morning in a rowboat.
They had a boat. They had a boat, a raft in my driveway. It was outrageous.
The floodwater came from up the street, where driving was tough. A car left high and dry from raging floodwaters pouring down the hillside.
My neighbor's in bad shape. Every time it does overflow, it goes down into his property, and it looks like he's getting it worse than normal.
The power of the gushing Molalla takes down tall, healthy trees,
There is.
washing them far downstream.
The way we describe the Molalla is it comes up fast and it goes down fast.
Joan Nason has lived along the Molalla for 25 years. You can watch as the river starts soaking her backyard and heads towards her home.
Take a look at these pictures of the river. It's at Mill Dam near Estacada. Look at this. The Clackamas River running near its highest level in 10 years, spewing water over the spillway of the dam. The River Mill Dam generates power for PGE. What a difference a day makes. Yesterday, It was the ice we were worried about waking up. Some of my neighbors saw them slipping getting that morning paper.
Was that only yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a difference it makes. Let's go to Curran Snipes again. Curran, you probably remember the difference between yesterday and today, right?
You stay right there, Curran. We're going to compare. This is Curran yesterday. And look at that, Curran. You're slip sliding away there. Tonight you're wet. Yesterday, you were sore. You took your little fall there.
What do you prefer, Curran?
I think I'll take this nice wet weather any day.
No doubt about it, homeowners are taking a beating this winter. First, it was wind, whipping trees on top homes. Then a deep freeze paralyzed people's plumbing from within. Now it's floods lapping at the front door. Tom Jaffe doesn't live anywhere near a stream, but the ground is so saturated it's even backed up his French drain.
It's not handling it. It's overflowing and going down into the basement.
He had this sump pump on most of the night. That kept his basement from flooding. Marie Matzies thought she had a famous river flowing into her basement.
Too much water. It flooded over the top here, and it came down over the sides like Niagara Falls. There's a walk under here someplace.
Matzies says she's found cleanup after the flood can be the toughest, especially since last week's big chill left her without water. Now she's left with a big mess.
We expected some high water with all the rain and the snow melt, but no one could have predicted this type of flooding. High water is rushing across several roads and through dozens of communities, soaking everything in the way. And this may be only the beginning, because we could get another half a foot of rain in the next few days. Good evening, I'm Steve Dunn.
And I'm Paul Lindman. Good evening. Here's the latest at 6:30. If somehow you missed all the excitement today, consider yourself fortunate, but we can take you on an aerial tour.
Above Highway 30, the hills are alive with waterfalls. The highway has been closed for most of the day. The road is covered by water or mud. Businesses are little islands. There's too much water. It has to go somewhere. Roads look like rivers of thick mud. The St. John's Bridge is closed. You can't get to it anyway. Elsewhere, a very muddy Johnson Creek is filling its banks. How about Mount Scott Creek? Yes, that's supposed to be a creek drowning the parking lot. You can see the Clackamas River is also a threat, while the Tualatin River has turned farmland into a floodplain. Take a look at how neighborhoods are waterlogged from Dawson Creek. Look at the home in the center under construction. That's really waterfront property with the waters lapping at the door. Even the multi-million-dollar Nike campus is surrounded by dirty water.
Never seen anything like it. Water from here clear to there.
As night falls, the waters keep rising. Several creeks and rivers in our area have flooded or threatened to flood. Even areas that aren't traditional flood spots are washed out. Residents are turning to sandbags in an effort to protect their property. But will it be enough?
A bizarre column of water gushes from underneath Highway 30 near the Sauvie Island Bridge. Torrential rains and melting ice sent water cascading across the highway, washing away the roadside and threatening a nearby rail line.
It is pretty shocking. We all actually live on houseboats, so we just rise with the tide.
The force of the water up above was enough to push water down here 6 feet into the air, and earlier in the day, shoved manhole covers off the pipes that are supposed to go underneath St. Helens Road. Debris on the highway and nearby ramps kept the St. John's Bridge closed for most of the day, and the problems continued into the night. A landslide that kept sliding for hours kept St. Helens Road from reopening, and as the rain continued, so did the battle for frustrated workers trying to tame Oregon's newest geyser. Now take a look at this. You can tell how high the water is behind me, but I'm going to use this spotlight to point out what's happening just on the bridge, just below where we are. You can see the creek now is barely making it underneath that bridge.
And over here, we can see just how close Salmon Creek is to take it out the Robinson's house. This is Salmon Creek right here. They've been all day long putting sandbags along here. And right down along the line here, you see it's been holding a little bit, but this gets, look at there, it's just now starting to come up over it. That's how the waters have been rising, and these sandbags that they've had all day thinking that it's holding back, not sure at all it's going to work, but they are going to bring in some more through the night, and everybody's just keeping their fingers crossed that sandbagging had a little bit of help from Mother Nature, that these waters will start receding instead of continuing to rise.
Let's go to Mark Hass, who's on the Sandy River. Mark, bring us up to date on what's happening there.
Well, Julie, the Sandy River is now, according to Troutdale Police, at its highest level since 1964. And old-timers around here know very well what the Christmas flood in Portland was all about 26 years ago, back in 1964. 21 feet is the level that the Troutdale Police have just measured. It is moving very swiftly. Most of this from Mount Hood and the Bull Run area, and this is what happens when snow melts very fast.
Sheila, what can you tell us relative to the insurance picture?
Well, what we found out, Paul, is pretty disturbing. The Federal Emergency Management Agency tells us that fewer than 20% of the Oregonians who live in floodplains own flood insurance.
Some of these homes here, right on the river, have the water all the way underneath them. Fortunately, the mobile home itself is a couple feet off the ground, but residents are definitely anxious about how high this water has come so quickly, and authorities are actually considering evacuating some of these folks if the water gets much higher.
And Portland would have been right there.
Water would have inundated the white areas, flooding downtown Portland as far east as Pioneer Square. General Furman estimates the dam saved over $1 billion in damages at Portland alone. The Corps says the Grand Coulee and John Day dams are at least 90% full tonight.
Into their home sliding off a hillside.
That wall that's sticking out that way used to face this way.
Neighbors can't believe what happened to Curtis and Margaret Wilder's home. The retired couple was asleep upstairs in their log cabin when they felt a rumble.
I said, this is the big one's earthquake. And then the house tilted up.
It wasn't an earthquake, but a mudslide that slammed into the cabin, knocking it off the foundation. Not only did the mudslide take out the house, but also a stretch of road behind it. You can see the asphalt up there, and then you can see where the road used to be. Residents say if this had happened a half hour later, there would have been a school bus coming along. Now the pavement simply disappears where a huge gash mars the landscape. This is where much of it wound up, Scosh People's house. He says a neighbor telephoned in the middle of the night to say, watch out. The torrent of water not only hit the front of the house, but went under the house and then came through the house, blowing out the back door. Look, you can see thousands of gallons of water just pouring through the house. Meanwhile, Curtis Wilder talked to his insurance agent, but the future wasn't really on his mind. What do you do now?
We're lucky to be alive. We're thankful to be alive.
Good evening, everybody, on a day we will never forget.
We are not out of this yet.
It's bad right now. All the creeks are over their banks. They're all flooding that we've seen, and there's still more to come. There's a lot of snow out here yet to be melted.
The melting snow surrounds another home near downtown Hood River and floods Matthew Smith's basement.
The water is extremely cold.
So cold, you can even see ice floating in the mess. A mess created when water rushed through Smith's neighborhood.
And the water just rushes in through the windows, knocked a couple of the glass panes out.
Around the corner, more misery. Workers at the Swell City Carpet Center try to save what they can.
Even though you only see the water up to here, it's actually soaking up a lot higher.
Water covers the warehouse floor, damaging everything it touches.
I'm kind of kicking myself because we could have prepared by getting everything off the floor, but had no idea it was going to be this bad.
We are asking people to stay indoors, not travel if they don't have to stay off the telephone so emergency people can communicate with each other.
It's been a soggy day over on the Oregon coast, and frankly, there's just no easy way into Tillamook County tonight. Let's go to the video and I'll show you. There are so many reasons. Here is a huge one. This is Highway 22, a huge cave-in extending about 50 feet back underneath the pavement gave way. and basically forced all motorists to turn around and head back towards Highway 18. This was near Hebo. Here is the big reason most people cannot get into Tillamook tonight: a flood. Basically surrounding the community, stranding vehicles, stranding their drivers, and surrounding the entire town, making it virtually impossible to get in or out of Tillamook tonight.
They say it's the worst in 40 to 50 years, the local residents.
Floodwaters from snowmelt, buckets of rain, and high tides caught everyone by surprise. Motorists left their cars in the middle of what was once Highway 101. Scores of them, in fact, some with their windows down. Now quiet testimony of how fast the floods hit.
Never been this bad. As long as I've been here, and as much as I've been told, that it's never been this deep. I've never seen it this high up to the road.
Livestock were not spared either. The impact on local farms can only be guessed at, but it will be devastating. Late today, a state of emergency was declared by Governor Kitzhaber, as many farmers, helped by friends and neighbors, rushed to get their dairy herds to higher ground. And with a much soggier day to come, Tillamook County can only prepare for more flooding to come.
In southwest Washington, this is the scene in La Center. A section of Timmons Road gave way late last night, slid down a hillside. One man escaped injury just before the road crumbled.
Barbara Wood has been in Bingen across from Hood River, where the situation is also very serious.
It all started when the thaw began on Snowden Mountain. Now, Walnut Street in Bingen looks a lot more like Walnut Rapids.
I can't believe the force of the water. It's just a small creek that runs. And this road isn't usually flooded. This is the first time it's been flooded.
Dry Creek really got going around 6 this morning. By 9 o'clock, the townsfolk knew they were in trouble.
Well, this is normally just a little runoff ditch.
Rock-filled muddy water flowed steadily as people worked quickly to get sandbags in place.
Looks like the homes over here are going to be okay. They got the sandbags up in enough time, but not in time enough for the folks down the street at the Elks Lodge. They just took on 2 feet of water.
Karen Jorgensen's the president of the Women's Auxiliary. She can hardly believe her eyes.
Everything is ruined. It'll be months if we ever get open again.
Now take a look at this. This is the Clackamas River near Estacada. This is the second highest flow through the River Mill Dam in history. The second highest flow.
We found Brian Butler wading through 2.5 feet of raw sewage and water. This muddy maze used to be his basement, but he's not leaving his home along Mill Creek.
We got flooded from the opposite of the creek side of our house, so it really was something that we weren't prepared for.
Butler's gambling he'll be safe, but many others who made the decision to stay put are now trapped by the river running wild.
Anxious residents of this mobile home park in Carver could do little but watch the rising tide. Upstream along Tranquility Road, it was anything but tranquil as Clackamas County Sheriff deputies used boats to rescue stranded homeowners.
Yeah, we don't really twist their arms. It's their decision. We encourage them to come out, and we're going to facilitate that as best we can, but some people are bound and determined to stay, and so we're going to let them.
This man's daughter was one of those trapped by the floodwaters.
He's worried. She's been bawling, and I'm worried to get her out.
And look at it, it goes clear to the river, which is a quarter mile that way.
The waters of the Santiam haven't been this high for more than 30 years.
I guess it's going to get worse.
Here, the waters will rise even higher as rescue crews asking people along the Santiam's edge to leave voluntarily.
I was going to stay home, and then looked out the window, it jumped a foot. I couldn't believe it went so fast, and I don't like being on television.
I want to take you right here to the city, the Willamette River in downtown Portland. You're looking at a live picture, and look at the Willamette right now. It's sitting at a little over 20 feet right now. They expect that to go even higher, and look how close that is to the seawall. There is a chance by tomorrow that the river could rise above the seawall and start to flood out some of the areas in downtown Portland.
A dire prediction for downtown Portland tomorrow as the Willamette River continues to rise. Flood stage is 18 feet. Right now, it's nearly 21 feet. But listen to what Portland Mayor Vera Katz is saying tonight.
We have new information that tomorrow by 7 p.m. we expect the water to rise to 28.8 feet by the wall.
City employees have worked into the night to develop the plan to save downtown Portland from flooding.
Sandbags ring the Northwest Natural Gas building. Among the businesses on that bottom floor, a bank, a restaurant, and the offices for the Portland Rose Festival Association. Sandbagging will continue in downtown through the night and into tomorrow.
Floodwaters from Johnson Creek turned Foster Road into a lake. Many homes and cars in a 20-square block area are already flooded out. Despite the mayor's suggestion for voluntary evacuations, some longtime residents are staying put. The water's already at Ron Springer's doorstep, but he still won't go.
Taking the horses out, don't want them in the floodwater.
These people evacuated horses to higher ground. One boy picks up a mailbox washed away by the high water. Even the driver who gave us a ride through the flood says it's time to go.
I think they should have taken it seriously about 2 or 3 hours ago. Seriously, it's a little late now.